what the hell is that? I love it.
They're good, huh?
I'm Nichole, culinary producer and recipe developer, and today we are making my dad's baked beans. This is a recipe that we've had on the Traeger site for a couple of years now, and it's one that I grew up eating at literally every single holiday party. Like every memory I have, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Father's Day, you name it, the smell of these beans is like floating in the background. It's one that my dad's been making for like 30 years. Started out, came from my grandma, and he took it and kind of made it its own, and that's what we're gonna get into today. You start with some bell pepper and white onion, and one of the things that I love about this recipe is you can really make it your own. So like I said, it started out with my grandma, and she likes things on the sweeter side. And so she had, I think it was like pineapple and brown sugar in the beans originally. My dad's not so much of a sweet tooth, and so he took those out and kind of added some dry mustard and a couple other things. But what I love about it is you can kind of switch it up and do it however you want, depending on what you like. You can add jalapenos in, you can do red bell pepper. The world is your oyster. Just like a small to medium dice-ish, somewhere in there. One of the most recent changes that he's making to this recipe, he started adding some leftover brisket. I know leftover brisket is something that is hard to come by. Usually when we make brisket, it's all gone, there's nothing left. But if you've got some, you can add some of that in. You could do some pulled pork, really anything. So what I love about this recipe too is you can really do most of it ahead of time. It's really forgiving recipe. It's also one of those things that, like, I'm sure everybody has something like this, but I hated it as a kid. Like I said, every holiday you would smell it and it was like, oh man, Dad's beans again. It was the worst, but as I got older, I think it's more the, well, it is a good recipe, but the nostalgia of it all kind of like changes things a bit when you're an adult, I think. But now my kids are the ones going like, oh, Papa's beans again. Just getting our, this is called mise en place. It's like all of your parts ready to go. The last thing that we have to do before we're ready to cook is dicing bacon. So we'll just cut this into little bite-sized pieces or lardons. This can be a one-pan recipe if you want it to be, depending on how big a pan you start with. But I love it because you're just cooking in the bacon fat, so you don't need anything else. Minimal ingredients, and super easy cleanup. All right. Let's get this guy. Give this a wipe, and then we will start on our bacon. So we're gonna start in a cast iron pan. Again, if you use a pan that's big enough to hold, if you have a pan that's big enough to hold all of your ingredients, it can be a one-pan dish. You wanna warm it up, we'll add our bacon and get it sauteing. So we're cooking our bacon. on the induction over here. And you just want to let it like render out until all of the fat is rendered and it's like kind of crispy. It's still going to bake longer in the beans itself, so you don't want it to get like soggy. So I try to get as much color on it here as I can before I throw it in. So our bacon's just about rendered out. You want to just make sure that it's all beautifully browned, no clear fat hanging around. Got maybe another 30 seconds in here. And I like to get a bowl with paper towel and I just scoop the bacon out. We're gonna cook with the bacon grease, so we're gonna cook the onions and the peppers in the bacon grease. You can drain some of it out if you want. I just leave it in. I'm not scared of a little bacon fat, but to each your own. So this is kind of the color that you're looking for. Little crispy bits. We'll just scoop them all out. Let them drain a little bit. All right, so next up are onions and peppers. Okay, so I threw a little bit of salt in there and we'll just kind of let that go for a little bit until the onions are translucent and the peppers are tender. Should be maybe like 5 to 10 minutes tops. Bring this guy over here. You want them just like barely translucent and tender. They're gonna keep cooking when we put it back on the grill. So you don't wanna take them much further than this. Set that off to the side. You can really do this in whatever size pan you have. You can do multiples. You can just add a few cans of beans if you need to like fill up more space. I'm using like a 9x13 pan for this one. My dad was always very specific about the brand of beans that you use. I think you can just use any pork and beans. Okay. Just add everything to this. Such a silly guy. In with our onions, peppers, and all that bacon grease. Put a little meat on your bones. Bacon. And this is where you would add in like any of those extra things you have laying around. If you've got pulled pork, brisket. I've actually always wanted to do a pulled pork one, and instead of ketchup, using like hot sauce and cilantro, probably be pretty good. And I'm not measuring anything, but you can find them on the website if you want them. So we've got ketchup, a little bit of onion powder, and garlic powder. And some dry mustard. Again, if you like them a little sweeter, you can add some brown sugar. You could do a barbecue sauce in here. It doesn't really need any more salt because of the beans and all the salt from the bacon, but I do heavy on the black pepper. It's personal preference. And then just give it a stir. So at this point, You can cover them if you would like. I bake these ones uncovered because I'm doing them on the grill. So I want that smoke and I want the exposure. So I'm gonna leave them like this. We're gonna go on the grill at 350 for about an hour. Pretty much what you're looking for is just some bubbling and like a darkening in color. The liquid's gonna thicken up just a little bit. Let's get these on, and I actually have one that's ready to go. So here's the batch that I made earlier. You can see they've like thickened up a little bit where if you scoop it away, it doesn't fill that hole again. They've darkened in color. What you want to do at this point is let them rest for, I would say like 15, 20 minutes if you can. They smell so freaking good. It's hard to let them do that. But right now, this is basically like molten lava. If you try to do anything with it, you're gonna burn the crap out of your mouth. So give it a minute, let it rest, let it thicken a little bit more, and I promise you'll thank me. All right, let's give it a shot. Not gonna lie, these ones are still slightly hot, so we're taking a risk, but we'll see how it is. They smell so good. I love, love, love the dry mustard in these. It like, I don't wanna say it gives it a kick, because it doesn't. It's not like spicy by any means, but it's just that little hint of like bitterness and like, what the hell is that? I love it. They're so good. And I feel like I'm back at my family Christmas party, which baked beans seems like a real weird thing to have at Christmas, but it wasn't for us. They're so good. Like I said, if you want something like slightly sweeter, you can play around with a little bit. You can add some brown sugar. There is already some sweetness in those beans, so I don't think you want to go too crazy with it. But it's such a nice balance of like the slight heat from the dry mustard and the sweetness, because you do get some from those beans and from the bell peppers. The smoky bacon with the smoke from the Traeger. It's seriously like my favorite baked bean of all time. So make sure you give it a try. If you want this recipe or any of my other recipes, any of Traeger's recipes, make sure you go to Traeger.com.